And yeah, Jonathan, I saw the post about the podcast. I can't wait to have a listen to the podcast with Simone.
Yeah, I think it's a good one. It's a good link, and so it's all about positive mindset.
You're very active.
You know, it's been a bit of a tough start to the year. We're just trying to stay positive, help people stay positive. So
you know what? I know how that feels. It has been a little bit interesting.
A challenging start.
You know, you call whatever word resonates. You know, it's all there.
Did Simone have some wonderful kind of tactics for remaining positive?
Yeah, well, I think one of the tactics which I liked was this zero-based thinking. It's like an opportunity to really start from scratch. And like if you had the opportunity to do things differently and start again, how would you do it? And I think that's really helpful, like personally and professionally, because most of the time we don't have that opportunity. But I guess now we do, right? The next 6 months, nobody knows what's going to happen. So you can just take the risk. So I kind of like that. Yeah.
I see we've got 31 people who have joined us. I'm just going to give it a minute or so, or a few more seconds to see there's another couple of people joining us, and then we'll kick off if that's all right. Yeah, should be good.
The numbers going up. So
yeah,
good to see.
Yeah, very, very excited to. They're also lining up, Claudia. They've seen your 2-minute video. The promise of more to come.
I'm not quite sure about that.
Wonderful.
That's for sure. I'm snowed in, and it's still snowing, so I'm going to be whole session.
But you know what? It's good. It's nice to snow. I found snow is so beautiful. It's so calming. Where I am, it's raining and it's grey. So snow is beautiful.
Yeah, I'm afraid London is much the same.
Yeah, I feel snow has got an energy of peace, and you know the wide, it's so so crisp. It's so with a little bit of sunshine. It's like diamond energy red coming off the ground. I found it's beautiful. Snow is beautiful. I found.
It's very good.
Yeah, so true. Right. Well, I think we have 35 people with us now. I think it's it being coming up to 5 past. Let's start, shall we? So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Hospitality Resilience Series Part 3. My name is John Hazan from Atlas Coaching. With me as co-hosts, we have Jonathan Humphreys from Hocuso and Chris Mumford, also from Hocuso and Service Leadership. Before I hand over to Jonathan to set the context for today's topic, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to everyone who joins us today, especially you if you're joining us for the first time. Thank you very much. As we embark on a new year, I think it's fair to say that we continue to face challenges both at home and at work. And rather like my mince pie waistline, the need to remain resilient hasn't gone away. We talked before Christmas on a couple of occasions. Our first session was about adaptability. Our second was about the mind-body link. And today we embrace another wonderful aspect of resilience with Claudia. I'm delighted you can all join us. We would encourage you to ask questions through the Q&A function that you see at the bottom of your screen. If you just type in a question, one of us will pick it up and pose that question to Claudia. So please do pose questions as you think of them. Please note this session is being recorded and will appear soon after our discussion in full, and will also appear as a podcast, and there will be an article as well. I'll hand over now to Jonathan, who's going to say a little bit more about why we feel this topic is so important.
Thank you very much, John. Good afternoon, everybody. 2020 has kind of morphed into 2021, and it hasn't felt like a clean break. And even with the vaccine post-travel opportunities on the horizon, the next few months are most likely going to be very challenging. There is still great uncertainty facing the hospitality industry, which will, I believe, result in a great unraveling of current structures, roles, and organizations. However, therein lies many opportunities for the right leaders and the right people who embrace a new way of thinking and are adaptable, flexible, and resilient, going back to our first session in the Hospitality Resilience series. However, and this is why we're doing these sessions, we need tools, techniques, and approaches. And this requires some kind, in order to embrace this, some kind of personal transformation. So whether we want to start or continue to embark on our own personal journey, hopefully this session will give us, and I'm sure it will, some ideas and perspectives of how we can move together. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Chris, who's going to introduce our wonderful guest today, Claudia Roth.
Thanks, Jonathan. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be. Happy January to you. I'm sure for many of you on this call, Claudia probably needs no introduction. But for those who may not know her, Claudia had an esteemed career in the luxury hospitality hotel industry, working for the likes of Hilton and UTEL, if you remember that brand, Shangri-La, and leading hotels of the world. Today, she is a quantum energy coach and the founder and managing director of Soul Luxury, which helps luxury brands engage meaningfully with their consumers. Claudia and I go back to her days at leading hotels of the world, when she was this, Claudia, you won't mind me saying, kind of very, respected, impressive, jet-setting, high-flying industry executive. And I'm fascinated to kind of go, hear more, Claudia, about the journey you've been through to where you are today from that time. And so, maybe that's the kind of the start of our conversation today is, just talk us through that journey and how you kind of went from running, Europe, Middle East, and Africa, leading hotels of the world, to what you're doing today.
Thank you. First of all, a very warm welcome to everybody around the world, and thank you, Jonathan, John, and Chris, for inviting me to kick off the Hospitality Resilience series this year. I think it's a great initiative what you're doing, because resilience is certainly a key word as we continue, and many other words which I believe, want to become familiar with, in the sense of not only understanding but really embodying it. Yes, when you talk about us meeting, I remember our last meeting very well in London. I was certainly a different person. And I was driven by something which was beyond what I actually understood. It was a need of proving myself. And the way I was able to prove myself is to really go for my career. And I would do anything and everything to be the part, to look the part, to reinforce the self-image I created in my mind. However, while I was at leading hotels of the world, I was constantly traveling around the world, and I remember it was actually an April morning. I was at the Ritz in Paris. And I had this beautiful suite, and the beds are really large and very sumptuous. I got up very early and went into the bathroom. I remember these were a double sink, and the window on the right-hand side, and the beautiful morning sun was coming into the bathroom. And I looked in the mirror. A big mirror was greeting me, and to my surprise, I saw a Blackberry imprint on my face. And I realized it was sort of like this sharp moment, you will never forget. I realized a thought came into my awareness that life outside moved on, but I, as Claudia, hadn't. So this was sort of like, I see it now as a knocking on my own door of awareness. And yeah, my life was really 24/7, being glued on my Blackberry, because it was an international career. But that nanosecond of new awareness started to open up all sorts of, yeah, you could call it a new way of seeing things, but very, very gradually, because I was so engrossed in my way of being that I pushed that other, that nudge away, but it would come back ever so often.
That's a great story. I love, I love the BlackBerry imprint will stay with me as a story. That will be our trigger point. If I ever wake up with my mobile phone attached, I know we've gone too far.
Yeah.
I wanted to pick up on I suppose on our title. I was really drawn by the living life intentionally. Could you talk to us a little bit more around that, Claudia?
Absolute, John. Whilst I was working and creating a career for myself, I loved every minute. As you can imagine, flying around the world in business class, first class, staying at these wonderful hotels, having wonderful clients. I mean, it's a dream come true. However, what I didn't realize is that lifestyle I led was driven by my ego, by internal drivers of, actually, if I looked at it very deeply, if I'm really honest with myself now, and I can be honest with myself, I'm not good enough. So therefore you have to prove to others. So whilst I was lucky to live a very an exciting life, but I didn't live an intentional life. I didn't have any time for myself, for my family. It was so extreme that I had to make, and you will laugh, and now I can laugh about myself. I had to make appointments in my diary with myself. Claudia, go to the gym. Claudia, go for a walk. Claudia, take a bath, a relaxing bath or whatever, just to squeeze some time in for myself. So this was not an intentional life. It was a life run by my ego, by outside forces. So what we mean by intentional life is a total shift from the outside, from the need of recognition or whatever the motivation is. We have different motivation which are coming from the outside, and really assessing what is important from within, from the heart. And that takes some honest conversation, because we are not used to go deep within ourselves, because we don't know what we find, and not everything we discover inside ourselves may be that what we wish to be confronted with. So it's that transition from outside values and drivers to the heart. What do I want? But in order to actually start to embark on intentional life, we need to be able to be holding our own presence in our heart, and that's alone in the beginning, it can be a challenge.
Claudia, how did you manage to do that? What techniques were you exposed to, or did you embrace in order to be able to do that for yourself? And also for the audience, what could you recommend? Because it's one thing saying that that's important. I think we kind of know intrinsically, if we're honest with ourselves, that in order to change, we have to go there. But how can we do it?
You're absolutely right. We know it. Of course we know it. But it's one thing to know it. And that's really the point now. We know so much, but it's actually embodying it and doing it and letting the knowledge come to our heart and work and feel into the wisdom of what we all carry. There are two things, and it makes me smile now when I think about it. I used to live in Hong Kong. I worked for Shangri-La, as Chris was saying. And that was the time when I was led to I can now call it a spiritual life. Suddenly my friends were really into Buddhism. They would take me to temples, etc. So suddenly I was reading Eastern philosophy. I was, studying whilst I enjoyed the high life of an expat in Hong Kong. So I always lived in duality. And when I came back from Hong Kong, my husband realized that meditation and sort of the Buddhist temple inverted commas would do me good. So he went inverted commas on the search, and he found inverted commas a Buddhist temple near where we live, just 15 minutes. So he even drove me there and showed it to me. So that became, while I was traveling, my sanctuary. Literally, I would come home on a Friday evening, get off the plane, come home, would take off all my jewelry and jump in my car, would go to the temple and meditate in the temple. So that was one way of really getting into silence. And the other way, because obviously I was traveling literally from Monday to Friday, sometimes from Monday to Saturdays, or sometimes I wouldn't come home. What I would do is, and my team at the time were smiling, every evening, no matter where I was, no matter how important the client dinner was, the executive meeting was, at 10 o'clock, Claudia would always leave, and inverted commas, she had a business meeting, a call with somebody in the world. And what I would do is I would go to my room, usually often a beautiful suite, and I had prepared a small little corner, and I would do my meditation, no matter where I was. And that 20 minutes, and even if it was only 10 minutes before I was literally falling asleep because I was so exhausted, gave me that disconnection between that outer life and that inner life. So that was sort of like how I carried along that longing to connect within myself.
So it's fascinating to hear kind of what you did, and I guess you found the discipline in a way to put that time in. Now, I know you work with a lot of leaders today, Claudia, on helping them with issues. What, because again, to Johnson's point, we kind of know and it sounds good, but what do you find blocks people from doing, from taking a step or finding, to your point, finding that time at 10 o'clock every day? I mean, there's, because I think a lot of, it's like kicking a habit in some way. I mean, people have these blocks which prevent them from and how do you overcome those?
There are many different reasons why we not do what we think is good for us. There's a study, even 1 out of 7 people, even if they're being told by their doctors that they're prone to an imminent heart attack, if they not change their diet or or lose weight or stop smoking, they still wouldn't do it. Habits are so persistent. Habits are part of, have creeped into our lives and and shape who we are. So habits become very, very, we can't even see that a habit is actually running ourselves. So, going back to intentional living, it's really, really powerful to start to become aware of what our habits are. Because, if a lot of people say, I haven't got time to sit with myself or meditate and whatever, we want to call it, or I have no time doing this. Well, if we say that, essentially what we are saying is I am denying myself the joy of 10 minutes silence, the joy of going for a walk. It's a self-denial. And the interesting thing is, in our culture, especially in the business world, we pride ourselves being eagerly busy. We pride ourselves working 12 hours a day. We pride ourselves flying around the world. And I put my hands up. That was my belief. The busier I am, the more important I am. So we carry all sorts of very, if I may say, strange beliefs, and to uncover them and to really question them. And that's what I did. I literally, looked at all my beliefs, and I'm still looking at them, because the interesting thing is, like an onion, you peel one layer, and then the next one, and then you discover more, and you discover more. So it's an interesting journey when you start going into your own inner selves, but it's a beautiful journey.
Can we, Claudia, can we look at habits a little bit more? Can you maybe give some examples of some habits which we may perceive are okay, but maybe are not, we may know that are not so good for us, but at the same time, how do we create good habits?
Yeah.
So that's the first part of my question. Also, and I'm just speaking from experience here, and I've been doing meditation for the last few years, and I just got back from a retreat, you know, where basically it's not an escape, but actually all I found I was doing is running into myself, right? Actually spending time sometimes with ourselves is actually somewhere we don't actually want to go. So I'd rather sometimes do anything else apart from that. So that may be a barrier for a lot of people in order to do that. So I wonder how that can tie in potentially with habits so that there is an opportunity to become more comfortable with good habits and also with that kind of silence. Or let's call it exploration, because I think it's not necessarily silence, it's more of an exploration of oneself in order to improve.
Yeah. I mean habits, you know, as we know, there are good habits and less good habits, and we need individually to establish what we consider as a good habit and not a good habit. But there is one fundamental aspect about habits, and it's very simple and it's very powerful. And the moment you become aware of that, you can actually change habits. So there are 3 steps which actually go into creating a habit. A habit is simply something you have done so often that it's part of who you think you are. So I must admit, and I like to give this example because it really resonates, it works with me, is I love a cup of coffee. And I love a cup of coffee in the mornings, first, inverted commas, not first thing after meditation, but right then. And what is happening is that there is a trigger. You know, you go to the coffee machine, you smell the coffee, and that triggers a behavior. It triggers the behavior of wanting to literally do the coffee, because that trigger is so strong, because it immediately moves you on to the reward. The reward in my instance is, I will feel so good. I will feel really, you know, relaxed, or whatever my mind tells me. So there's always, every habit has got 3 steps. It's the trigger, the trigger, like, for example, I know that a lot of people like to take their mobile phones with them into the bed and, you know, quickly go through their messages before bedtime. The trigger is, I want to stay connected. It makes me feel, the reward, it makes me feel important, or it makes me feel heard, whatever the reward is. Now, as long as we run that theme, nothing will change. So the moment we can interrupt when the trigger comes in, and we give us a little bit of space in our own consciousness, simply to ask, do I now want that coffee? Do I want to now read my messages? Is that moment of just a nanosecond of creating space in our awareness to create space for a choice. And then we can say, yes, I want to do it, and that's fine, or no, I may not want to do it. And this is a very powerful sort of nanoseconds. And when we are really serious about changing habits, we want to reframe the reward. So, like, for example, taking the mobile phone into bedroom. Now, the reward could be for somebody, because, you know, if you read your messages and you get some messages you don't like to read in the evenings, you may not sleep well. So the reward may be, what you want to bring into your awareness is, I leave my mobile phone downstairs or wherever, and the reward, I see myself having a really good sleep. I feel really relaxed the next morning. So we really, it's not only to say, I don't want to do this, it's really looking at reprogramming our mind with a reward, which makes which makes us feel good.
Yeah, I'm sure that will resonate. The reward is all important.
And if you,
Claudia,
yeah, please.
sorry.
No, please.
No, we just had a question fired in, which I'm sure you'd be keen to approach. What the question is from Anonymous: what can professionals do to avoid burnouts in an environment where they do not control their schedules or working hours?
Okay, there are many different ways. It all, at the end of the day, we have control over what we think and how we feel. It may be for some people difficult to accept, but that is the reality. Now, to avoid burnout, and it depends obviously on the different circumstances, is to start to create one's own boundaries. You know, if my boss sort of like puts everything on me and I don't have any boundaries, then it is droning. You know, the workload can be absolutely droning. So first step is to becoming aware of what's actually happening in your body, because burnout has got certain symptoms, whether it's tiredness, whether it is sort of a disempowerment. Becoming aware of that through one's own self-reflection, and then starting to put a little new routines into it. Maybe starting with a meditation or with a walk, if it's possible, or with something you enjoy doing. Because the moment we feel disempowered, i.e. giving our power to a circumstance or person, that creates conflict, because our heart, our needs, our heart is not being taken care of. I hope that answers the question. But the techniques, there are many, many, many. Nature, creativity, different aspects.
You raise a great point, Claudia, and in fact, I think throughout this, there's been a theme echoing in my mind, which is the importance of doing right by yourself or for yourself. And there's so much advice out there, be it through self-help books, be it through colleagues, be it through friends. But a theme that resonates with me as a coach is making it personal to my client. If we accept that really the solution lies within, then what advice could you give to someone who may be new to this whole to start this journey, but where do they do that? What advice could you do to an individual to make them own or help them own this process?
Yeah, that's a good question, because again, there is so much out there and it is so personal. And it's the entry point to one's own consciousness is different for everybody. Now, I can only share what helps, what shifted in my instance. I came across by total default by sitting on a plane going from Hong Kong to Kota Kinabalu, and I was looking at somebody's book, and the title was The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. I read it, and you all, Nick, so you know that book. That really opened, that gave me an understanding that I'm not my thoughts. And the moment you start to appreciate that, then you open your consciousness for other things to come your way. Now, what is very powerful is different kind of meditation. And I want to make this first very clear. A lot of my clients tell me I can't meditate. Okay, it's a belief, but that's okay. Because the belief is I can't quiet my thoughts. Now, where this belief comes from, we don't know, because as we know, meditation is not about blocking out thoughts. It's actually the act of witnessing our thoughts. And to become the witness of our life, our thoughts, our emotions, that's the entry point to within. And becoming detached to one's own feelings, because we are the witness of our thoughts, emotions. So there are lots of different apps out there. One which I really like and I use a lot is Insight Timer, and they have a free version. They have fantastic meditations, different topics. There is a lot on YouTube, so the resource is immense. And I encourage everybody to also play a little bit with it. Just see what you like, because there are different topics. And something else which is really powerful to start getting in is breathing. Very strong breathing. And somebody who has got a large follower is Wim Hof, and you can look him up. That is a really great way of starting to connect with your inner self.
I'm just wondering if you could. You've taken clients through this, executives. You've taken them through this process. One of my at least observations when I'm having the opportunity to reflect on this, in terms of take a step back or observe, as you say, and also maybe when I'm feeling a bit under pressure or stressed or anxious or whatever it might be, is to focus on areas that I can actually directly control and areas that I have no control over. So I was wondering if, that's just one of my personal techniques to be able to address this and kind of move forward. It gives me a greater level of comfort. But I was wondering if you're able to, maybe as a little case study, explain how you've taken one of your executives through this process of transformation and along this journey with some of these different techniques. And how they started maybe with their approach and how now they are with their approach within their
Jonathan, it's very difficult to answer that question because we are all so unique. Different people come to me with a different level of awareness. So some come to me, they don't even know that their self, their soul wants to change something. So to take you through a journey is very difficult because there are so many variables. What I would like to say is there's one thing which is a constant with everybody. It's the level of commitment to one's own inner world. The creator that the creator, that sense of wanting to understand my own self is the deeper the journey unfolds. So it's what I facilitate is opening up the consciousness of my clients to tap into that joy, that feeling of becoming interested in my own self. And once that is there, then there are ways, and there are many different ways of getting somewhere. And the point is, this is not a journey to get somewhere. That's a journey. That's a journey of one's own. It's a journey of committing to one's own inner growth and inner joy. Because at the end of the day, we are looking for peace. We are looking for happiness. We're looking for health. But one thing, what is really important, and I'm really, really delighted to be here and talking to you and the audience. Why is it that suddenly, inverted commas, we are having these conversations? It's a typical, inverted commas, working day. If you think 2 years ago, this topic would not have resonated. People would be so engrossed in their business and strategies and deliverables and watching out for the competition. We would have not had any space in our consciousness to actually allow ourselves for a conversation of that nature. Now, that alone for me is profound, and it shows me that something is happening in the world. It is happening right now as we sit here. The world is changing. The solutions, the way we thought, what we did, what we used to do, is no longer applicable in the same sense as what is emerging. And what is emerging, we don't know. Therefore, we need to start coming back to our own selves to find our own way in a world which is totally open for interpretation, and we can only, inverted commas, interpret it, this new world, based on our own consciousness. And that's why self-awareness and consciousness work is the gift for the leaders in the new world to come.
Yeah, I agree. It starts with self-awareness. I think it's a great point. Claudia, sorry, I'm going to jump in with another question from another anonymously submitted question. They say, thank you for this really interesting session. Could you also let us know whether you believe we can start meditating ourselves, or must we necessarily be guided by an expert? And if we can do so ourselves, how and where do we begin?
It's a good question. I mean, I did it myself. I just, inverted commas, decided I want to sit in quiet. I created a nice place for myself and did it. Again, the advice is check in with yourself, because you may be absolutely okay to sit in silence with yourself, or you may say, okay, I am going to find out some meditation classes. I maybe prefer doing it in the community, or I may join, like I said, inside timer. So it's really, and this is why it's so important. We need to tap into our own inner resources because we know what we want.
Can you, Claudia, I mean, just from my personal experience, I mean, meditation is bloody tough. I find, right, this is put out there. I find, yeah, to get that monkey brain, and again, I appreciate it's not necessarily to quieten the monkey brain or kick the monkey out of the brain, but to witness what's going on. But it's interesting, and sometimes it's more successful than others. What I have found useful is sensing into what my body is doing. And I'm curious to hear what you may have to say on this, kind of how that helps with, what's the mind and body. And I find that, it can be as little as 30 seconds, or it could be a 10-minute walk, but the kind of sensing, okay, what's my right foot feeling right now, working up my leg to my shoulders and my arms and my, really literally going through my body. What is my body feeling? That then helps me attune to, if I'm in a work environment, for example, and there's a conflict, actually I'm registering what's going on in my body and how that's reacting to what's happening. And that I find extremely useful. Can do you have this experience, or can you talk to maybe the link there with the body sensing?
This is fascinating, Chris. And thank you for sharing that, because it puts in another aspect of how we connect to our own selves. Some people are better to and have a very strong relationship with their body and their emotion than others. Now, you intuitively connected to that, what works for you best, i.e. sensing your body. Now, it's very powerful to feel one's emotion, one's body, because that's a way of centering yourself. So that's another form of centering. You could call it meditation. I think we get very hung up with the word meditation because, we all have we all have our own interpretation of it. We see these photos, somebody sitting quietly somewhere, beautifully in nature and on a meditation cushion, and that's our way of seeing how meditation should work, but actually sitting or going for a walk and feeling into your body, it's a very powerful body awareness exercise. So that's great that you can do that, because what is happening is that you are quieting your mind via your body.
Sticking with the concept of meditation, we've had a question from Yamina. Does meditation help in finding our life mission? Any thoughts on that?
Yes. The interesting point is if it becomes a practice where you can go beyond your thought, your mind, your body, you tap into higher consciousness, where you literally commune with your own higher self, your soul, whatever word resonates, and from there you can bring in the gift, your life purpose, into your awareness, because everything is already there. It's in the field, in the quantum field. When you don't have an answer for something, you are not yet open. Your consciousness is not open to actually receive the message. So the quieter we can become, and the more we are working on our own consciousness, the more of the higher vibrational thoughts can come into our awareness.
Great, thank you, Claudia. I guess I just thought I'd add to this because maybe it's helpful to have kind of different perspectives as well. And I know you're the guest, but I guess this is a topic that is fascinating for all of us. I thought I'd just give you a couple of minutes as well, so a pause. I got into meditation. I was reading a book by Tim Ferriss, Tribe of Mentors, and it's all about different executive CEOs, sports personalities. There was a constant theme. I would say 70% of the people he interviewed did some kind of form of meditation. And as you said, it's so broad in range. It could be from fly fishing to kind of hill walking to actually sitting. But it was fascinating for me. I needed somebody to guide me, and I did transcendental meditation, and I had somebody kind of guide me through that. I do now. I just kind of explore by myself. And just to answer the question about life mission, it's not a life mission, but we had a strategy workshop which Chris was part of last week, and I went away, and I've just come up with our new vision for the company based on the workshop. And I haven't communicated, Chris. I won't tell it over this forum because we need to do it internally first. But to kind of go in terms of what you're saying, Claudia, I think that opportunity to kind of really feel for what's absolutely right and bring everything together, the complexities, and then filter through it and then hone in and feel that and know that something's right, I think is very powerful.
Yes.
So it does. I find it does work, but I need that time to kind of reflect.
And this is the power, the gift we can give ourselves in a time where everything is, it's chaotic right now, is to become, the more we are able to come in our own stillness, the more we can receive. And we need this now because we need to create the future. We are called to create the future now. It's such an amazing time, and to recognize that we individually are here to shape who we want to be, what life we want to lead, is a gift. But in order to actually, be in that space of thinking, of allowing, we need to rest our mind from the future. We need to be able to, to really embrace that, through quietness, through reflection, or through, being in nature. That different people have different ways, as we discussed, but to allow ourselves space to create our lives.
I think so. Maybe I just add.
I wanted to.
Sorry, John.
No, go on. No, I was triggered by what you were saying, but no, you have some more, Jonathan. What would you like to say?
Sorry, John. I just wanted to kind of finish on that because I have a sense this is maybe, I'm not 100% sure. I have a sense this is kind of where a lot of us are at this particular point in time. January 2021, there's this kind of 6-month unknown. And we know that something's going to happen several months from now. It's not going to happen imminently. And there's this kind of stasis or let's say it's very stagnant at the moment. Everybody's kind of waiting to see what happens. And that for me, it's like, that's where I lose the sense of control, because it's now kind of out there in terms of we're waiting to see for other people to make decisions about what's going to actually happen. So for me, it's the opportunity to bring it back and say, okay, what can I control? Maybe I can use the opportunity to do things differently, for us to do at Hokuso, to do things differently together. But personally, how am I going to think differently? So I'm going to use this time, rather than it being a period of no control and stagnation, to explore a new opportunity and reality.
And Jonathan, that's exactly it. I would like just to add one aspect. We are in the Aquarian age. In the Aquarian age, the whole, everything is shifting from control, from ego, from greed, into love, into essence, into community. And this is what we are currently, what's happening, because we can see on the world stage how systems are collapsing. We used to have that system of power, and it's now going this way. So everything is being challenged, literally the way we live. So by understanding that and taking the power back to our own self and creating from that place aligned to who we are from our hearts, is actually that what we are being guided to do. And it requires surrender. It requires not knowing. And unfortunately, these are all attributes we don't know from business, because in business we believe we have to know. We believe we surrendering. Oh my God, you don't do this. You need to have a strategy. You need to have a business plan. You need to have this. But we are currently in a phase of totally new orientation. So making a business plan right now in the traditional sense, I'm questioning whether that needs much more flexibility in order to adapt as we move forward.
And I think it's Otto Scharmer talks about the ability for us to accept our vulnerability as being one of our important first steps, which you mentioned there, which is really important. But I wanted to roll back a moment ago. You mentioned community. We've talked a lot in this session about the importance of taking steps individually and individual control and self-awareness. But I know I personally draw a lot of strength, and it is a mainstay of resilience from my community, be that my colleagues, be that my family, be that my friends, so that we mean community in lots of different ways. When you are looking at the challenges we face today, right here, right now, we defer to community quite a lot. Is there anything you can see that we can draw on from our community? There might be a lot of people out there surrounded by communities, but not maybe sure how to use that more effectively within this topic. Is there some guidance you can provide around that?
John, you make a very good point. Communities become more and more important, and what you are creating through your resilience series, you're creating a community. So you are very specific about the topics. So you are drawing a tribe, and this is really what's happening now. The more we start to understand ourselves, the more we understand what is important to us, going back to intentional living, the more we can align with communities in alignment with our vision, with who we are, who we want to become. Because as we are venturing out into a world which we are asked to recreate for ourselves. We want and we need support to help us along that way, because we are vulnerable. Yes, we are, because we simply don't know. And to be in a community where vulnerability, as an example, is cherished from a place that vulnerability is actually courage, is a place which creates confidence, which creates peace, which creates support. So we will be looking for communities in a different sense than what we used to. In the past, we had a community of, based on outputs, but now we are looking for communities based on values. So that's the difference. And what is interesting, because I'm very interested in communities, is how now new communities, how quickly they are forming. There are lots of apps and lots of, technology, businesses all somehow now create communities. And it's really interesting how communities are so important, and they don't have to be big, they don't have to be global, it can be very small.
I guess just off that, one of the other questions I had for you, Claudia, and I'm conscious of time, but we have an interest in leaders and leadership and holistic leadership and so forth. And I think you've just touched on it a little bit with communities, but can you talk to, why is it important for a leader to have developed good, strong self-awareness or presence? What is the ripple effect of that? What have you seen from the leaders you've worked with? How does that impact then not just themselves, because we talked a lot about the self, but also that community of the organization or the team?
Chris, you make a good point. When we talked a lot about self-awareness, but ultimately self-awareness creates our understanding for the world around us. So again, for a leader to become self-aware is the first step to engage, to honor, to be in the truth with their staff, because each of us has got different needs, different challenges, different pains. And what is really important as a leader in that new era is to have a deeper understanding. You could call it, it's emotional awareness, because the more we can be in the field of awareness, I call it, of that other person, the more we can positively guide and influence and support. So again, this harsh leadership in the past, the greed and success and all of that, it's the past. We want leaders who understand the complexity of the world. We want leaders who have an interest in sustainability, on holistic living. I want to see leaders who embrace the human being as a whole, body, mind, and spirit. We are not only just functioning. So there is a total shift in consciousness needed for the leader of the future. And many young people, we know that they are much further ahead in that field than some of the leaders who have many years of experience.
Claudia, sticking with this topic, we've had a question come in from Mariana. How about the importance of compassion in developing our intentional living? What has been your experience working with leaders on this subject?
Compassion is extremely important. It's, again, compassion for oneself and compassion for the world. The more we can be compassionate and forgiving with ourselves, the more we can extend that. The interesting aspect of that new era is the moment we can embody aspects of compassion, vulnerability, and all of that, the more we can actually allow others to step into that space within themselves. So if I can share compassion, I allow that other person to feel, to be in that state as well, because we are matching state, we are energy, we are matching our frequencies. That's why we get on with some people, and why we don't get with others. So the more we can allow ourselves to be compassionate, the more we allow the other person to be in that space of compassion. And we need a lot of compassion, because it's not easy out there.
Claudia, thank you very much. I'm going to do a wrap up, because we're getting close to the hour. We could for sure keep on going. I'm going to do a wrap up, and we'll hope that the questions keep coming in on the forum afterwards on LinkedIn. But my kind of wrap up of this session is, in order for us to go on a journey of personal transformation, the starting point would be to start to live life more intentionally. And in order to do that, we can create the right kind of habits. In order to do that, we need to take a little bit of a break from when we're on autopilot doing things, and just questioning if we really want to be doing those things. In order to kind of evaluate that or have that observation, we need to be able to take a step back, and we need to be able to have some kind of reflection. That can come through many forms, but ultimately that re-examination process can come through meditation, whatever form that can take. And we have to find our own way in order to be able to do that. And we kind of know it within ourselves of what's going to work for us, but that's part of the process that we need to go through. One of the things that you mentioned is that there's this commitment and joy to explore ourselves, like be part of this journey. It's not about the destination. We also looked at the element of control and bringing control back within our own lives. Then in order to do this, it's, as you said, it's a very challenging situation out there. At the same time, we need to be open and vulnerable, but we can do this together by creating the community. And the community allows us to kind of share this compassion. And therefore, we can also say we don't know. And it gives a very safe space to say, look, I don't know. I'm on this journey. I'm on this exploration. So that's kind of please feel free to add if I missed, I'm sure I missed certain areas, but please, that's my kind of synopsis of today's session.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. I would like to add one thing, if you allow me. When I embarked on this, path of intentional living, based on really coming from, based on my heart's desire, I published my first book. It's a 28 days journey to self-love. So I hope it's okay to mention, if you want to, to get a sense of, to go on a journey to explore what we talked about it, please look up. If you would ask me 10 years ago, 5 years ago, would I ever publish a book about self-love? Certainly not. But now what I realize is, while I was writing it, it's the basis for everything. The moment we can truly honor ourselves, we open ourselves to a place of intentional living. And that's what we want, especially now.
Claudia, listen, thank you so much. It's been fascinating. I still have questions which we haven't gotten to, so I'm sure we could have gone on. I would encourage everybody to connect and look Claudia up on LinkedIn. She's extremely active with her writings and also various initiatives in terms of meditation groups and coffee mornings and drop-ins. So there's a lot of content out there that she's fantastic at putting out. So please, do look that up. And Claudia, thank you so much. I'll let John close the session, but just wanted to give you a personal thank you.
Thank you for this conversation. Thank you, listeners all around the world. Some of you I know, some not, and some new friends. So it's just so incredible how the world is changing and we can communicate in such a way. Thank you very much to all of you.
Wonderful session, Claudia. Thank you so much. I'll add my personal thanks to you for such a wonderful insight there. That concludes today's session. our thanks to Claudia, our thanks to co-host Jonathan Humphreys from HOCSO, Chris Mumford from HOCSO and Service Leadership. As I said at the beginning, we will put this out as in full and as a podcast and an article. So please keep an eye out on the HOCSO website and the Hospitality and Resilience series LinkedIn as well. So keep an eye out for that. And then hopefully we will see you next month for we're going to tackle another aspect of resilience. So do please keep an eye out for that and join us then. And thank you so much to everyone who joined us today for that truly fascinating session. Until next time, we wish you all the best. Bye.
Bye-bye.